This is Bread and Burgers, two everyday burger fanatics in pursuit of that perfect burger.
Join John and Jonas as they explore all there is about this tasty treat and deconstruct everything from bun to bun.
We hope you enjoy this discussion about burgers and everything life.
Welcome back to Bread and Burgers. This is episode 6. How are you guys doing? I am John.
I'm Jonas.
And we hope you're tuning in and we hope you're staying safe. I know that it's a crazy world out there at the moment, but, you know, everybody's trying their best. So, Jonas, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Just kind of still adjusting a little bit to this kind of stay-at-home sort of thing, doing a lot more cooking. Talked to a couple of friends about burgers, and they seemed intrigued by the fact that we can kind of talk so much about it. Also, they mentioned, you know, there's some people that I think aren't huge into burgers, and while I might personally say it's just because, you know, that person's never had a good burger, I kind of get where they're coming from. My mom was kind of like that. And so maybe today's episode will be something that is helpful or something that they'll find interesting.
Yeah. Actually, I was the same way. I was talking to a friend. And he's like, "Oh, really? Like you can talk about burgers for so long?" I mean, you know, it's hard to it's difficult to recognize that you can actually talk about, you know, the definition of a burger and all that, like, you know, everything that we've been talking about so far in the previous episodes. And so it's an interesting, you know, topic. I think it can go like way beyond just what we've touched on. I think this is, you know, a little bit just you know, you're seeing it a little bit, you know, above the water, but then there's like a giant glacier kind of under the sea right now. So
yeah, I definitely think, you know, neither one of us are, you know, culinary experts, but it's just something that we find very interesting. And it's kind of the same regards that you can talk about, you know, good sushi or a good steak. And I've definitely seen people go on and on about that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, we'll dive into something that's not burgers at the moment, but what's your morning routine? Do you or don't you coffee?
I actually don't coffee. Coffee for me is more of a, I guess, recreational drink, if you call it that. Like, I'm a social coffee drinker, which means that I don't actually really like coffee that much, right? My history of coffee is like, you know, like coffee ice cream. So, I usually put stuff in my coffee, which I am told by coffee people means you don't like coffee. So I don't like coffee. So for me, it's more of a, like, there's things about it I appreciate. And so, you know, I'll keep a tin of like Whole Foods cinnamon roast or something in my cupboard.
Cinnamon roast.
It was just the first thing I saw. Like, again, I don't know anything about coffee. I assume that it's marginally better than like Folgers or Starbucks.
Fair enough.
And, you know, I'm not going to go all out. I had a friend who was really into it, and he says, like, you know, your life with coffee will change as soon as you get like a Chemex and you learn how to do the pour over right. You know, no, he's weighing out his coffee, preheating the cup, blooming the coffee, all of that sort of stuff. And for me, it's just not like, caffeine has never had a huge impact on me. I usually need a lot of it. So at that point in time, I'm not enjoying the coffee anymore. And my hot beverage of choice typically is more tea than coffee. I'm more of a tea guy.
Okay. Okay.
How about you, John? I know you're pretty into coffee.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, to echo your friend, there are some coffee gear and coffee things that can make your coffee experience better. I actually, how I got into, like, you know, enjoying coffee is like, since I live, you know, near San Francisco, I worked in San Francisco for a long time. The craft coffee, the third wave, you know, coffee boom really gave way, like Blue Bottle or Ritual, and having a good cup of espresso based beverage is something that I am like definitely into. So yeah, I was just chatting with Jonas, about last maybe a few days ago, about how there's this video that I just did like a small tutorial video about a thing that's on my coffee machine, my espresso machine at home, and it has like 3,600 views. I'm like, wow, it exploded. I mean, relative terms, but it exploded, on YouTube, and I was just very, yeah, I was interested about like what's going on, and I'm sure that a lot of people are coffee drinkers. They might not be, they might not have an espresso machine at home like me. I'm kind of crazy like that, but people like their coffee. And so I kind of went down this rabbit trail of doing different coffees, trying having an espresso machine at home, and roasting my own beans too. And yeah, it definitely changed. Even my wife has been saying it's hard to go back to store-bought coffee. Not that we can't do it. We still go to Starbucks for that triple frap, you know, Trenta mocha chip with like 3 pumps of caramel sometimes. But anyway,
Yeah,
we do that from time to time. But
sure.
for the most part, we enjoy our coffee at home. Yeah, I mean, well, like kind of like how bread and burgers, is it burgers, you can, once you have a good burger, it can change your life, right? Once you have a good burger, you're like, wow, I never knew burgers can be like this. I think coffee too. Once you have a good cup of coffee, maybe you'll change your mind.
Yeah, I think part of it is going into that deeper appreciation of just how things work, right? And I'm sure when you
Exactly.
started making your own coffee, you understood better how what goes into good coffee and how it kind of comes together like that from the roasting process to the brewing process. And yeah, similarly with a burger, right? You can, we're hoping that people can understand and appreciate more putting together a burger. And the goal may not necessarily be to like I'm always going to make my own burger, but it just really it draws out like things to appreciate about burgers. I may not think very highly of fast food joints, and if you want to hear about that, you should go back and don't know what we're talking about. Go back to a previous episode where we discuss our top 5 fast food burgers. I may not, it may not be up there, but doesn't mean I won't eat it, or like there are times when I'll just go and I'll get it, right? It's not
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I can't make something better, but
Yeah, and I've always told this to my friends too, that yeah, I'm not like a food snob. I do consider me a little bit of a foodie, but I'm not a food snob in that every place I go to needs to be like Michelin 1, 2, or 3 stars or something like that. I can actually enjoy a McDonald's burger or a Wendy's burger, and I can actually enjoy a fancy restaurant.
yeah, I think that's part of it. Bless you.
Yeah,
I
and
think that's
we'll cut that out.
sure.
And yeah, I mean, I can enjoy that, because um, I can appreciate, if different times, you would want to eat different things. So,
Yeah, your
um,
expectations get tempered, right? I my cousin had this very very apt saying that he used to say, and um, I kind of took it to heart. And he said, uh, "Panda Express is delicious as long as you don't think of it as Chinese food."
yeah, okay, fair enough.
So I mean, it's not exactly in a similar kind of vein. The idea is like I'm not walking into like McDonald's or Burger King expecting, right, like some sort of like gourmet, you know,
Burger.
Whopper or
Maybe you
burger.
can't even call it a burger. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. Now, see, bread and burgers, where we talk about everything, related burgers and everything life, right? So that slogan that we kind of don't remember at the moment, we're botching on. Burgers and everything life. We're talking about coffee right now. I think it's really just drilling down to just appreciating things that you might overlook in life. Burgers obviously being the main star of the show and being one of them. But I was just watching the news, and I see that I think it was Uber Eats. They released stats about what people are ordering during this pandemic, during this season. And it's interesting because there are two kind of major takeaways. One, Californians order, they order most. What they order most, is chicken tikka masala.
Okay.
Very Californian. It's an Indian inspired dish with yogurt, with chicken, with curry, a little bit of tomatoey kind of taste. And nationwide, the most ordered are French fries, miso soup, and tiramisu. All right,
Wow.
what do you think, Jonas?
Okay. I think it's interesting. I think there's a certain thing that it demonstrates kind of like the types of things that people crave. French fries and tiramisu inherently are a little more challenging to make at home. And I think the average person just doesn't carry or have a large supply of miso unless it's already in their like diet kind of regularly.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about this is, and this is interesting because I was talking with some people on Sunday, and they were mentioning how like certain areas don't have Uber Eats, right? There's certain, I think, demographics that Uber Eats kind of caters to, and through this kind of shelter in place sort of situation, it makes sense that certain places they're still going kind of strong versus others. And I kind of have a hunch, right? Like, yeah, people crave French fries, but a lot of people that would normally be the like, I want to go out and grab like a Jack in the Box burger kind of people, probably either wouldn't Uber Eats, or even if they would, the place where they live, probably not a lot of people. There aren't a lot of drivers, not a lot of people Uber Eats to begin with.
So what you're saying is, without more details of how they got their stats, or what kind of metropolitan area, or maybe, like normalize it with the rural areas, it's going to be hard to really say definitively what people are eating during this kind of this month.
I mean,
or so.
I think, yeah, the Uber Eats, people that Uber Eats, that's what they're. I think that's what they've been eating, and so that's what they will continue to eat.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
And
my wife and I, we've been cooking for our family for more often during this
Right.
month. Did some burgers, did some like some Chinese food, some grilling. Yeah. So our the way that we consume what we have, it certainly changed, and we didn't go out as often, obviously, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just kind of my take. Like, I definitely have not ordered as much food, and certainly, like, I mean, Uber Eats in and of itself, right, to me, leaves out a very important kind of demographic just because of the nature of how Uber Eats works, which is pizza, right? Because most pizza places do their own delivery.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, and I was thinking like, oh, you can order French fries, which is a good side, right? How can you say
Sure.
French fries being, hey, this is the item that is most ordered, but like French fries goes with things,
I
fish
mean,
and chips or burgers, right? Or
right. I think it's the most ubiquitous in the sense of it's the one thing on the menu that everyone's going to order. So, like, for example, I think like waffle fries and lemonade are the two most ordered things in Chick-fil-A,
yeah,
right? Statistically. But that's not to say that like it's because people just go for waffle fries and lemonade, but it's because that's the combo that most people typically get to go with whichever chicken sandwich or salad or whatever that they get, right? I imagine French fries, hash browns, and generally would probably be the most sold items in McDonald's as well.
yeah, and if you separate out the burgers and the fries and all that, of course, right? You would have, if every meal comes with French fries, then French fries obviously would be number one. So
Right.
yeah, although I find that the stats are they're interesting, good talking points, but ultimately it's a little skewed, right? But chicken tikka
Sure.
masala for Californian is to me is just like kind of a a nod to the West Coast, the Californians, where like
Yeah.
we like to try different things, and yeah.
I mean, I think there is a growing appreciation of Indian food in general overall.
Hmm.
Some might argue there is also a growing kind of Indian population. I know that places that normally cater for their employees, such as Google,
Hmm.
and even some of the companies that I used to work at, like they would always make sure to have like one very dedicated like Indian kind of selection.
Yeah.
And it's possible now that these people are sheltering at home, they don't normally cook for themselves anyway, and that's what they normally eat, and so that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, we talked about Uber Eats, a little bit about coffee, but of course, as I was saying, the star of the show, obviously, is the burger, right? Bread and burgers. That's what we need to talk about. But last week, when I was talking to Jonas, and we noticed a video from Bon Appetit, and it is Chris Morocco, one of the senior editors, posting on YouTube, and talking about a veggie burger. Oh, dun dun dun.
Sure.
Veggie burger, right? And of
I
course,
notice.
we talked about it. Maybe that's not a burger, but what we want to do is do a kind of reaction video or reaction. We'll kind of watch it together. Snippets of it. We're not gonna watch the whole thing, and just bring up a little our thoughts, our responses to some of the
Sure.
things that it was brought up in the video.
I do
So
notice that you pronounce the name of the magazine the same way that editor-in-chief Adam Rappaport pronounces it.
okay, and Bon
That
Appetit.
is Bon Appetit versus the French Bon Appetit. But, you know,
They're
potato
from New
potato.
York. Give me a break. I think it was one episode where Claire was like, she was saying crepe, and then obviously in New York and American, right, crepe. So where I'm from, I'm in California, I'll say crepe or bon appetit.
Sure.
Anyway, so
As long as
pronunciation
you don't start
aside.
as long as you don't start talking like Brad.
Oh, I don't have a New York accent. You're the one that needs that might have to do that.
I gotta get it.
I mean, you've been in New York. You've been in in
Yeah,
the East
but
Coast
that's
for a while.
Jersey, right? I gotta start just reading it water.
Water, yeah. Anyway, so here's a video. Let's go ahead and take a look.
The lentil burger to me is the ultimate just from the standpoint of makeability and the fact that you could come home after a very busy Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday and throw this together in kind of like half an hour, 45 minutes or so.
So okay. So first of all, I mean, this is the first little segment introduction where he talks about the lentil burger, right? Like, oh, it's pretty easy to make in 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll get there. We'll see how easy it is, for him to make. But
Sure.
I really wonder though, as I was watching this, I don't know if you feel the same way, Jonas. How hard is it to make an actual burger though?
Realistically, it probably isn't. I wouldn't consider it too difficult. Certainly, I would say that there's probably stuff that Chris Morocco maybe takes a little for granted in the sense that like he is in like a chef space, so he kind of thinks like a chef,
Mm-hmm.
whereas most home cooks probably don't. I would argue that in this context, how I take it is he's saying that for a veggie burger, which inherently to me is going to be more work than a normal burger,
Mm-hmm.
this is relatively easy, right? And so he's talking to me within the realm of veggie burger only, not within the realm
Okay.
of burgers.
Okay.
That's kind of how I took it. What about you?
Yeah, because I'm thinking like, well, let's set the stage, right? Given that there are hamburger buns at home, right? Given that there are ground meats at home, I'm not talking about bringing your own meat grinder out and start grinding it. Even that's not too difficult, but let's just, for the sake of simplicity, there's ground meat at home. There's already cheese at home. Even making a most simple burger, I 30 minutes or so, maybe even less than that, can be achievable. That's kind of my take.
Right.
So if it was like, Monday coming back after work or Tuesday after work or something, and like if given that you're super beat, then I probably wouldn't even go there, right? But if I wanted to be fancy, yeah, I'm sure I can whip up a burger.
I mean, I definitely done it before, and I've made enough burgers. Like, if you have the right tools, right? And we're not talking here about like this is the best burger you ever tasted. But if, say, you have like a contact cooker, right, like AKA George Foreman grill, right, the amount of time it takes to preheat the grill itself is probably more time than you actually spending making the burger. Like, and that includes cooking time.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that. That Chris is talking about. Hey, in terms of a veggie burger, it's pretty simple, right? Okay, so let's continue.
This is actually the third veggie burger I've developed. The first one was kind of a superiority burger style maximalist approach where you are truly trying to kind of recreate the sensation of eating meat from the standpoint of having a range of textures from like crispy to chewy, soft, kind of like yielding, and then building.
He's surely a food
flavors.
editor.
This one is completely makeable, and it doesn't have to be any kind of special occasion. Okay, so veggie burgers fall into two camps. You have veggie burgers that are trying to be meat, and then you have veggie burgers that are not necessarily trying to be meat. And frankly, I don't know. I celebrate both. I feel like this style of burger, comes in. It's not trying to replicate meat. It's just trying to be friggin' delicious.
Okay, so he said a lot of things there, right? But I think the biggest takeaway is that he is saying, Chris Morocco is saying that there are two types of veggie burgers, right? One are the meat, imposters, and the other one is just, a veggie patty, or kind of like this one, the lentil burger, right? So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think there is the idea of the way I would distinguish it again is similar. It's like, is it trying to be meat or not? And the way I would distinguish it is when you say veggie burger, are you trying to make like a burger in the sense of how we've discussed it, like what is a burger? Or are you simply using burger as kind of a medium?
Okay.
Like
the vehicle of bun bun versus actual burger, right?
And I'm inspired. It was kind of inspired by a burger, but I'm actually not really trying to be a burger kind of thing. And yeah, I think in this case, right, like when you're not going for that, I tend to, right, this goes into the whole categorization thing again, but that's kind of splitting hairs, and I personally tend to respect that idea of like we want to celebrate these flavors over I want to make this as close to meat as possible.
Yeah, and I think this is what Chris was saying, that at least for the various recipes that he developed, there are some that try to mimic and replicate the chewiness of the burger, the that bite, that give, and also just the texture overall, the flavors overall. And I think Impossible or Beyond Meat falls into this camp, right? That you really are trying to, like emulate that is a meat substitute. That's what it is.
Right. And
yeah,
part of me is just kind of like there's a part of me that kind of wonders about like who exactly or what exactly is it trying to accomplish? Like, why do you want to substitute the meat flavor? When I go out with like friends that are like vegetarians, I had a meeting with like a bunch of people in at my church, and we went out for lunch, and the place we went to happened to be vegetarian. And the one actual vegetarian in our group was kind of like, I, I don't know the best word. I'm gonna say she was kind of
Okay.
offended whenever we were served a dish that like tastes like meat. Like she would take a bite and she's like, "This tastes like meat," and she'd give kind of like a look on her face.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Why, if you're, a vegetarian, if you're celebrating the ingredients that makes a vegetarian dish, I don't want to say you shouldn't innovate, but at the same time, making it taste like meat is kind of, I mean, you want the umami flavor, you want the saltiness, but ultimately you kind of
Right.
don't want to emulate meat, in that way.
Right. And so the other aspect of it that I can think of, and maybe I'm just being cynical about this, is people who normally eat meat, who want to eat more vegetables. And there's this kind of placebo effect of
Hmm.
healthiness. Because nutritionally, right, if you just look at like the Impossible Whopper versus the normal Whopper, right? Um, there is an argument that they're either comparable or the meat alternative is actually less
Yeah,
healthy.
yeah. And then I think the to give credit to Impossible and Beyond, I at least a big part of their marketing, their slogan is not really saying that this is better, this is whatever, but in terms of kind of the global scale, cattling is expensive. You need to have the feed for it,
Sure.
you need the space for it, yeah, the waste, the water, and like what they're proposing, that this plant-based, burger, plant-based meat can actually, it'll take one step down, because you're using what you're feeding the cows for consumption, rather
Sure.
than having the cows
Sure.
consume it and then you consume the cow, right? So that's kind of the thing that at least part of the marketing is trying to do, and I
Yeah,
respect that. I
I can
don't
see that.
know if they're really trying to cater to, like, hey, carnivores, let's eat this, and now you would never have to eat meat again. Yeah, I don't know if that's kind of the case, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, I would probably be offended with your friend as well, that why are you trying to be meat? Just cook it the way that it needs to be cooked, right? So yeah, the two camps of burgers, veggie burgers, right? Yeah, officially in our definition, maybe not a burger, but you know, or maybe it is a burger, just that we have to define that the burger, the way that it's presented and that sensation that you eat it is what makes a veggie burger a burger, rather than a sandwich.
Yeah, it's kind of on the precipice of I could go either way with this.
Okay, okay. Well, and I guess we'll
I
see,
would,
right? We'll
yeah,
see. We'll see what the end result of this, of this veggie burger is, this lentil burger, and see if at least it meets that criteria that Chris and the team, they are judging it as a burger esque kind of recipe. Um, well,
sure.
let's see. So lentil burgers, obviously, they need to prep the lentils.
So let's start with the lentils themselves. I would never use like a set amount of liquid with something like a lentil. I find that cooking it like pasta, in plenty of boiling salted water gives you, first of all, it agitates the lentils while they're cooking, so that you know that they're moving around and that you're not getting some that are kind of clumped around the bottom. And you're also, because of that, they're cooking very evenly, and you have a better gauge of when to pull all of them. These are not lentils for lentil soup. And these are like nice and intact. We're gonna pull them here. You'll notice like there's no mush happening here. There's no mushat.
So we'll kind of pause it right there for a moment, and of course I've edited a few things in there that talked about how he approaches cooking lentils. But I guess what I'm personally reacting to is that when he was talking about the makeability of this burger, yes, of course you can make it at home. 30 to 45 minutes, I'm not so sure, especially for people who may not be as seasoned as he is, because you're talking about needing to boil the lentils, needing to not follow just the packaging, right, and boil the lentils, salt it right, he checked it actually multiple times, and to make sure that the texture is correct just for the lentils alone. It's complicated. I'm not saying that grinding meats, there's no skill involved. There certainly is. There's a lot of skill involved in grinding meats, but even just the lentils here, you need to pay special care and attention to it, and I think that's where the complexity comes in.
Yeah, I think there's a certain degree of complexity that is innate to me just simply because I don't cook with lentils a lot. So that's kind of a different beast altogether. But I think when Chris kind of talks about like makeability, he might be talking about it also in the sense of like not from like a burger standpoint, but from like a home cooked meal standpoint, right? And when you think about like 30 to 45 minutes, that's probably pretty comparable to what you would need to say like prep like pasta or even like rice and stir fry.
Yeah, for the most part.
In that regards, it's like it's something different that you can pull out that still falls within that realm of like I can make this on a weeknight dinner after work. Comparable to like all the other stuff I normally would prepare.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just wondering if it could be 30 to 45 minutes because, even, without the cut of the video that we're watching here, he spent, easily 15 minutes, I guess going through talking about it, but there's also not a lot of prep time as well. So, I mean, again, if it takes a professional chef, in front of a camera, cut 15 minutes, it would be for me. It'd probably be a little longer, even though I can cook a 30-minute, 45-minute meal, easy. But I'm just thinking it's still a little complicated. But
yeah. I mean, I definitely think like the first time you do anything, it's gonna take a while. Like if you're following the recipe, you're just going through. Is this lentil cooked to the right amount? Or is it not cooked to the right amount? Like what constitutes like just right for the burger, that sort of thing.
Right.
Especially if you don't use lentils a lot. And so first time's probably not going to be very comfortable. It's probably going to take longer. But I think as you get the hang of it, right? Like it's not. I think what he talks about in it being simple is like there's nothing really technical that you have to do here.
Fair enough. I mean, of course, normally you can see some of their shows. They create like, crazy machines and ways of doing things. Put it in a blast chiller. All of those things which we don't have, at home. So yeah, I see that.
Right. So essentially, like he's using a lot of very basic tools, and he's doing stuff without any sort of major. Kitchen appliances.
Chef magic, maybe. Okay. Well, let's see what else he adds into the mix.
Although we're not trying to make this taste like meat, we want it to taste good, right? So things that amp up umami flavor and add like massive amounts of depth, like garlic, kind of prime suspect. It's going to almost completely cook through. Miso, again, like this is the product of months of fermentation. We're trying almond flour today, and I'm really hoping it's going to work. A little bit just gives just a hint of smokiness and richness. I'm just going to mash this around before I put my lentils in, so I can kind of distribute everything kind of evenly. So one thing that this burger does not have, which obviously meat-based burgers do, even the leaner ones, is they have fat. They have richness. So adding a little bit of fat to this
adding olive oil here
is pretty indispensable. This is going to help break some of those lentils apart. Lentils have an ability, kind of a little bit like a chickpea, to kind of want to bind to itself. It's a tiny bit of salt. It tastes pretty good. The miso adds a good bit of salt to it.
Okay, so he was adding mushrooms, garlic, smoked paprika, a little bit of miso, flour to kind of bind it together, and also a little bit of olive oil. I don't know. I mean, looking at this, it does look like kind of like a patty, don't you think?
Yeah, and this is kind of what I mean by like medium of a burger versus like burger substitute. I think here, right, like he's making it look like a burger, but and maybe he's going for a little bit of that burger texture, but I don't know that he's
Hmm.
really like necessarily saying like this needs to taste like seasoned ground beef,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so in that regards, I'm kind of okay with it, like taking that shape, and I'm not gonna say like this is burger sacrilege or anything, but
I don't know if
yeah,
there's any
I
burger
think
sacrilege, but
that's true. But he, I mean, I think it looks good. Um, you know, I'd be willing to try it.
hmm yeah. Again, I don't want to offend the veggie burger fans, but yeah, it just in the strict definition of a burger, it's kind of not. I mean, it's using the burger as a vehicle, and right now, I think what Chris is doing, yeah, of course, like regardless of whether you're trying to mimic a burger or not, I think it's a good mix. There's lentils, which has a little bit of crunch, but also a little bit of give because of how lentils are innately. And then there are the mushrooms that's inside that gives you that chewiness that it's not necessarily just you don't. I'm not saying that it needs to be like a burger, but having that chewiness there kind of enhances that experience. And of course the garlic, the umami flavors of the garlic, the mushroom, and the that twist of the paprika. Really that's it's pretty genius.
Right, and I think it's just like it's gonna taste good, right? Like regardless of what form, and I think they've just tested and determined that putting this on a piece of bread would be the best form as opposed to and certainly the mushroom and the oil and the flour as kind of putting it all together gives it a texture different than like just saying eating like a packed bowl of like rice
Yeah.
or lentils in this case.
Yeah, makes sense. And it looks pretty good. I think. Well, let's see how it continues developing here.
So again, mine are trending a little bit more delicate because the lentils never quite, frankly, probably got like mushy enough. You're gonna do great. Yours are gonna be fine. All you're trying
That's
to
the
do
thing.
is get some sear and some texture on them, such that you can just get it to hold together long enough to make it into a bun and into your mouth. That's it. That's the whole game. And I think we're good here. I mean, I have like a really good layer of crisp, on the top. I have a good layer of crispiness on the underside. Yeah, we're good. Take it to the plate.
Okay, so he fried the lentil patties, and again, here's the thing: like controlling that mush. I'm sure this is not their first time trying this recipe before they got on camera, and even then there's that variation or uncertainty in there about cooking lentils. Of course, burgers can be the same way. You can have meats that are ground a little bit too mushy and not and all that, but ultimately like that is an interesting variable that you need to control the mushiness, and he said it in the video a few times about that too.
Yeah, and I think just depending on what you're cooking, like different things need to be controlled. With
Yeah.
lentils, it's the mushiness and factoring in the idea that he has to try to get it to hold together, right? Like that was the biggest mushiness factor thing that he talked about was getting the patty to hold together.
Yeah.
I'm sure to me, right, it would probably be equally delicious if like we didn't try to hold it together and we just fried the whole thing up and served it on like tacos.
Yeah, it
taco
reminds me of like falafel, right?
fajitas. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
falafel, you kind of have the chickpea, that goes into the falafel, and then it holds together a little bit with the flour. There's that, but then as you bite into it, yes, there's some that are still intact, and then some that are already falling apart. And so this reminds me of that. Maybe a falafel burger can be on next.
Yeah, I mean, to me, essentially, that was one of the first things I thought of when I saw this recipe is it's basically a falafel with like a slightly different shape and a slightly different medium of how you eat it. And so
Yeah.
to me, I would kind of treat it more like a falafel than I would say like a burger. I don't, if I were to say like this is a burger, like I don't know that I would say I don't like it, but it would probably rate pretty low on my just like burger scale
Yeah.
as a burger. And it's kind of to the point we talked about earlier, right? Like just because, I like Chinese food, doesn't mean I don't like Panda Express. Now, if I think of Panda Express as Chinese food, then I'm like, oh yeah, this is
No.
garbage. But if I don't think about it, if like I think Panda Express is just Panda Express, right? Like Taco Bell is just Taco Bell. It's not Mexican food. Then it's like, oh, is this actually...
We love you, Panda Express and Taco Bell. We want your sponsorship. So just don't listen to the last 5 minutes or
Right.
5 seconds.
Right.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. Don't treat it as a burger or don't treat it as what it is trying to be, but treat it as kind of a standalone by itself. Okay. Yeah, and he talked about a specific kind of tactile experience that when he's frying, pan frying the patty, he wants that crisp, right? That crisp is not a word that we use to describe burgers. Not as much. Of course, there's a crust, right? But the crispiness of it, he's been very focused on that.
Yeah, and in that sense, it might be closer to like a fried chicken sandwich. But I guess my question to you on that is, how much crust do you like on your burger? Because
I don't mind it.
There are some burgers
Yeah.
that are pretty like soft, like tender, right? Like no crust. It's a very kind of low heat cook until it's cooked all the way through, and it's very juicy, but there's definitely, you can tell it never hit like really, really high heat.
I would say I don't mind it either way, but I think the problem is I've seen slow cooked burgers with like barely any crust development, but it's cooked medium rare, and that is weird to me because I think it's missing a component that one, it's not really held together, and two, there's that mushiness that even Chris was talking about, and so having a crust, even it looks like kind of blackened burnt crust, it's okay because there's that little bit of pan seared / marginal char flavor on that kind of blackened crust, and that kind of that contrasts with the tenderness or the bite, that bounce of that meat.
Yeah.
So I think what the guys here, the Chris and the guys here are trying to do, saying the crispiness of of this lentil patty, it helps. It is trying to say this is one of the more important tactile kind of experiences that you need for this burger to work, because if not, it's just gonna fall flat.
Yeah, texture makes a difference, right? Like nobody wants like a soggy falafel or even like French fries, right? And so it's that contrast in textures is kind of what we're looking for here, especially because the substance of it is kind of a bunch of things that need to be held together by something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, obviously, we can't just look at the burger based on the patty alone. Let's see how he assembles the burger. Yogurt.
A really thick yogurt is great here, just because, when you introduce
Guess that's like
lemon juice
mayo.
to it, it's going to thin it out a little bit. So this is a little bit on the looser side. I love pickles on my burger. Love, love, love. I love sprouts. Like, I celebrate the world of sprouts and all its breadth and diversity. Whatever lettuce is doing to a burger, which I feel like...
And he's using butter lettuce,
let's
too.
face it, it's there for looks. Like, yeah. Like, sure, lettuce. Fine. I see you, but like...
Well, he talked about a few things about the condiments, and we talked about that in a previous episode, too. But majority, he's using yogurt, and pickles, and some sort of greens, sprouts,
Mm-hmm.
butter, lettuce. I think it's interesting. It so there's a condiment, there's a fixing, on this veggie burger. It kind of looks like a burger, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think the choice of condiment again goes back to like what are you trying to accomplish in terms of like a flavor profile with this burger. And there's a sense like I get where Chris is coming from with the lettuce. Like you want something nicer than iceberg, but you also, it's not adding a whole lot. And I think in part is because, as we discussed previously, like lettuce is for me more of a textural thing than it is necessarily like any sort of major addition. And so when you use like fresher, like nicer, leafier lettuce, those tend to not have that texture. And then this burger in and of itself is like gonna be that so crispy inherently that maybe you lose a little bit with the lettuce.
Which is kind of weird that he chose to use. Looking at it, I'll look at the recipe too, but he chose to have a trimmed, butter lettuce on the top of the burger rather than say not necessarily iceberg, but let's say romaine or a few other lettuce variants that allow for that crispiness.
And maybe part of it is like a water content kind of thing, because crispier lettuces tend to have more water in them, and
right, which you don't want soggy, lentil patties or soggy buns. But I think the thing is, regardless, he kind of balanced out the flavor pretty well. It seems that there's yogurt, kind of substituting that as the mayo. Or of course you can use mayo, but I think in the beginning, or at least one part of the video, he talked about how he's trying to stay relatively like more vegetarian / on the borderline of vegan, using vegan yogurt, vegan mayo, but I think having that creaminess, that texture helps, and also the pickles too.
Yeah, and he's using Greek yogurt with lemon, and then he's adding pickles to it. And that, to me, that combination is what really kind of sells me on like this is very like falafel-esque.
Yeah,
right?
like a twist on a gyro or a falafel.
Right, like it's very much like falafel and like Americanized falafel plus like tzatziki, Americanized like tzatziki sauce.
Yeah, and also the sprouts doesn't help either, right? I mean, it's effectively a reskinned, kind of falafel like, or a gyro some sort.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a lentil burger. So, well, let's see how he rates it.
You've been eating the crunchy bits. I'm here for the crunchy bits. That tiny bit of smoked paprika, right? And then like the olive oil and the crunch. It's like it's happening in such an intense and visceral way.
Okay. So he ate it. He talked about it. And, I just hear crunchy. The smoked paprika, but, crunchy. I have my thoughts, but Jonas,
Sure.
What do you think?
I mean, I think that would be the most appealing part of it, but that's also to me what makes it less like a burger.
Okay.
I would appreciate something like that in terms of like, yeah, definitely would love to get, enjoy that kind of crispy exterior, fried exterior, right? In the same way that I would for, we've been mentioning a lot, falafel, or for even any kind of like, the other thing I think about would be like some sort of like pan fried, like, starch based kind of pancake almost kind of thing, right? Like a Korean pancake, seafood pancake with a lot of cornstarch in it that makes it like super crispy. And I'm in it for that crispy part. Incidentally, what actually bothered me the most about that and what detracted it from, to me, and this is maybe just me from like a burger experience, is the burger kind of physically like falling apart as he's eating it. So you see all the lentils kind of falling out onto the plate. And there's not as that like a whole lot, like the whole burger's like disintegrating, but enough for me to be like, I don't, yeah, the kind of like I maybe like this would be like a fork and knife kind of thing.
Okay.
For me,
Which then
more
further drives down that this is not a
right,
burger.
right.
Kind of thing.
Like I don't know if necessarily I would enjoy this as much in like a burger medium than in some other set medium kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the one of my biggest concerns, or at least my response to that is, it seems like it's a good dinner, good sandwich, right? And he talked about the sensory aspect of it, having that crispiness, that crunch, and also the smoked paprika that's giving you that twist. But that's it. What about that bite? I know we're not trying to mimic. He's not trying to mimic that burger, but having that mushroom, initially when he says that putting it in the mushroom allows for the umami flavor and also that a little bit of texture, and when he was eating it, it's just not there, and it kind of echoes the fact that when it's kind of falling apart, there's not as much of that chew, and I think that's probably the biggest flaw to me of this burger.
Yeah, I think that's the general difficulty of like a veggie burger in general. Just because it's not one kind of consistent sort of like piece, right? Like it doesn't really stick together in a way that meat, like even ground meat kind of does. We're not going for like kind of like some weird like fried mashed potato patty kind of thing here. Because we want a little more than like kind of a glorified potato chip almost kind of experience. But and so like my experience with veggie burgers, like I'm sure that lentil burger is delicious, but my experience with veggie burgers is after that first bite, like after you break apart that sear or that crust that kind of holds it together, it just kind of like falls apart in a sort of unappealing way in your mouth that meat kind of doesn't.
Yeah, of course. And again, it's not trying to be meat, but I wish that the rating of that burger, that lentil burger, I wish the team really talked more about how the interplay between the yogurt, the sprouts, the pickles kind of helped make it more coherent, rather than just one aspect or maybe one or two aspects of the sensory experience. So that to me is right. Without trying it, in person, the actual sandwich itself. I can't say whether it tastes good or not. It does seem like it will, and it, probably will. But I guess here's my take. Final thoughts on this overall burger. Air quotes here. Do you want to try it, Jonas?
I would be willing to try it. This is definitely not something I would go out of my way to like do though, right? Like this feels more like a recipe is like, oh, I have like extra burger buns and like some lentils and I don't know what to do with them.
Okay.
Kind of a recipe. More so than like I am going to go like prep for this recipe kind of thing. And that simply could be because like I don't go out of my way to stock some of these things. So like mushrooms or I buy mushrooms now and then, but like lentils specifically, like I don't do a lot with them, and it would feel like kind of gimmicky to me just to buy lentils for this express purpose. One thing I think of is right, like in Korean food, like I love like kimchi soup, kimchi jjigae, or like kimchi fried rice. But that's stuff you're supposed to do with like old kimchi, and it would feel weird to me like I'm buying kimchi expressly for the purpose of letting it get old and then using it in these kind of leftover dishes.
Okay. So you're saying that it's kind of going out of your way just to make something that supposedly it's easy to make, and if you have these things left at home, then sure you can make it, but otherwise you won't really want to go.
Yeah, I think that's what Chris is pitching it as, like,
Okay.
in some sense, is kind of like, hey, you have lentils at home, you might have some extra burger buns at home, and you want to make a quick dinner kind of thing.
I don't know if we have any
Or-
extra miso at home though.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Or
and
sprouts.
this is depends on how you stock your kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with fixings and stuff, like, you just find stuff that works. I think the star of the show would have been the lentil patty, and and it's sort of like, I have like just kind of these extra ingredients, and what am I going to do with it,
Okay.
sort of thing. That's what it feels like to me. Either that, or it's just like, I'm feeling adventurous, I want to try something different.
Okay. So I mean, I guess that I feel the same way. It seems like it's gonna taste good, but at the same time, like knowing that it's pretty easy to make a burger. Do I really want to go out of my way to make this? I don't know. I'm not sold yet. But if there's a certain type of condiment or a certain type of fixing that will elevate this a little more, maybe, maybe I'll try it. You want to get extra crunch? Hey, onion, shoestring fries or onion rings or something like that. That might help. But again, I don't know if I would, want to actually go. I'll try it. I don't know. I want to actually go and go to the store tonight and buy all the ingredients just to try it, at home. That kind of thing.
Right. I mean, the only context I can really see myself trying this is either if someone else makes it, or like, I'm having a burger party,
Yeah. Okay.
and I have a vegetarian friend coming over,
Okay.
right?
That's fair.
And then in which case they'd be like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll give this a go, right? Like, this seems like a good alternative over, like, all of us are eating burgers and you can just have a salad kind of thing.
Yeah, but anyway, but good job, Bon Appetit.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a solid kind of dinner option. Tell us what you think. Leave a comment down below. Think about whether you would yay, nay, is it a burger or not? What kind of extra condiments or fixings would you try to put in it? And give us a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, press the little bell icon next to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely want to hear from you. And also let us know if, like, lentils aren't your thing. What else would you use in, like, what's your go-to veggie burger alternative? Is it a meat alternative, or is it just something different, right? Do you like the lentils? Do you like the boga beans? Do you like the giant portobello cap? Let us know.
Yep. Anyway, this is Bread and Burgers. We're out.
See ya.